and welcome to the Finance Audit Committee on July 13th. And we'll start off by taking the roll.
Councilmember Cole.
Present.
Councilmember Hampton.
Blessed and honored to be here.
Councilmember Masuda.
Here.
Mayor Gordo is not here yet. We have a quorum of the Finance Audit Committee.
I'd propose that we start with item 2. We can jump into the internal audit plan.
Okay.
We don't have any public comment, right? Not on the agenda.
We have, no, correct.
Okay.
Okay, we'll start with item 2, approval of fiscal year 2027 internal audit plan and year 25-26 internal audit plan update.
Good afternoon, finance members. I'm
We'll get closer to it.
Sure. So today I have a couple of items for you. One is the fiscal year 2026 update, and I would also like your approval on the fiscal year 2027 internal audit plan. So for the completed projects, we completed the payroll audit and the street pavement maintenance program audit. We also worked on an advisory project related to a public works bid. And currently we're working on 2 audits. One is related to the building and safety inspections audit of city facilities. And the other is an IT system access audit. For open audit recommendations, we have 38 open as of the year end, and 14 of these are high risk. And we are working with departments to implement these to reduce the risks. We received 40 hotline submissions during the fiscal year, which we worked with various city departments to investigate. HR and the CM's office were the leading departments that we routed the complaints to, followed by our own internal audit division. The fiscal year 2027 citywide risk assessment was performed earlier this year for all city departments. This involved doing a very comprehensive meetings with all of the departments and their department heads and staff, also discussions with senior management, and we also reviewed the city council goals and priorities and looked at budget narratives. This resulted in over 140 risks that we compiled citywide. It is available in Appendix A, but only the top 10 are listed. The audit risk methodology that we developed is very comprehensive and also includes 13 categories that I'd like to quickly review with you. So for each of the auditable risk units that we have in that matrix, we considered financial exposure, service delivery, compliance and regulatory risks assigned to each of those auditable units. And as you'll note, the biggest part of the pie are what we call governance picks. So those involved asking department heads if these are actually relevant risks. My own professional judgment as an auditor, and also the city manager, deputy city manager, relevancy check for organizational wide risk. And basically that resulted in the internal audit plan that we're proposing for the upcoming fiscal year. So the top 4 projects from that assessment result in the plan. The first would be a utility billing audit. So this would be focused on the C2M system for water and power. And we would review the processes to ensure that there is accuracy of billing, recording, and collecting revenues. As you know, that's hundreds of millions of dollars of revenue going through that system. There's also a capital project management audit that we have on the plan. So this would be working with Public Works Department and DOT, since they have, they perform the capital projects citywide, and it would involve assessing planning, cost estimating, scheduling, contract administration. And ultimately, these projects land on your desk, and I want to make sure that you have good data to make informed decisions for capital projects. There's also a business districts audit on the plan, and this kind of aligns with the Economic Development Council priority. This would be reviewing oversight of the business districts to determine whether it complies with its formation and management agreements and uses assessment revenues appropriately. And lastly, housing grants allocation oversight review. This would evaluate the city's process for allocating housing funds and selecting, contracting with, and monitoring subrecipients. And this aligns with the housing and homelessness priority that you identified last December 2025. We also have a couple of other projects that we usually put on the audit plan. One is related to solar panel permitting process, and the other is related to fire equipment replacement scheduling. Those we may not get to, but we always like to have some projects in case we reassess risk and we need another project to go with. That concludes my presentation. I'm happy to take any questions that you may have.
Councilmember Cole?
A combination of questions and comments. So, first of all, I have been on the council for a year and a half and have been impressed with what a very small unit is able to produce, both in terms of quality and quantity of work. And I strongly support the resources that go into the function that you perform, and you're a great addition to our team.
Thank you.
And the utility billing audit, for the reasons you outlined, makes a lot of sense. The business districts audit, there may be some reasons why that makes sense. I certainly think that the housing grants allocation oversight review is congruent with council priorities. I am deeply committed to managing our capital projects. It's been something that's been high on my agenda since I was a planning commissioner. I am not aware of deficiency in the areas you're talking about. It seems like we run a pretty tight ship. The problem is we don't have enough money. But what caused, other than the fact that this is this is a $2 billion item, what led you to see this as relatively high risk?
Yeah, sure. So it definitely is tied to the high dollar aspect, and also just ensuring that you're provided with reliable and timely information to make go or no-go decisions. When I first came here, I worked on the advisory project related to the bus fleet transition. And I think overall information can be improved in how it lands on your desk to make those decisions. I don't know if
That's
you
an
would
easy
agree or
sell
disagree.
with me.
Yeah. But I think it would prove to be a value-added audit, just to ensure that the macro level process checks out and the methodology is carried out from project to project, that there are some controls that we're looking at.
And people have, a common sense version of what an audit is, and then there's the yellow book or the red book or the blue book or the green book or whatever you all have. Mr. City Manager, this is directed as much to you as to the audit division. One area that I see as an opportunity for potential improvement is how we procure goods and services. Every week we're approving 5-year contracts for $5 million, $10 million, $15 million, $20 million. And even a 5% savings on those, even a 2% savings on those adds up to real money. Again, a professional audit may not be the right piece of foundation for figuring out how we can continue to improve that area. But what are your thoughts about priority to looking at how we procure goods and services?
How we procure goods and services, I think, was part of an internal review 3 or 4 years ago. It's what led us to do the charter amendment when we changed the purchasing thresholds, when we implemented alternative procurement methods and a few other things. We did make some strides a few years ago, I think, in improving efficiency. I would tend to agree that there are probably other avenues that we could undertake, but I think those are probably centered around broader discussions with the council about processes in which we use and priorities in which we focus how the procurement is addressed, if it's low bid or negotiated or whatever it is. And I don't know that an audit will bring a lot of those things to light. I think it's really a policy decision for the council, and we can certainly make some recommendations if the focus is on expediency, cost efficiency, and things like that.
Okay, the only other comment that I wanted to make is I know that solar panel is on the next up list. I think that's a high priority and a relatively focused, it's not a huge undertaking like auditing our capital project management, but in terms of potential upside, I think that's a very strong candidate for early consideration. Those are my comments. Thank you.
Mr. Asuda?
Mayor, thank you for coming, and we're on item number 2. We started with item number 2, and we're starting the approval of the 2027 internal audit plan. Anything else that we need to do?
Just roll call for the approval of we need a motion.
Motion for approval?
I will move approval of the audit plan.
Second.
Okay, we have a first and a second. Roll call, please.
The item is approved.
Pardon me?
The item is approved.
Okay, so item's
Thank you.
approved. Mayor, you want to take over?
Go ahead, Mr. Masuda. Go ahead.
Okay. Matt, are we going
I
to
may
go to
leave.
number 1?
It's up to the committee's wishes. I just know that the mayor wanted to be here for item number 1, so I didn't want to jump to item number 1 until the mayor was here, but we can go back to item number 1. And
Okay,
go
let's
through
do
the
number
agenda.
1.
We
Review.
can dispose of item 3 probably in 2 minutes.
Correct. Yeah, we can.
Do 3 first?
I'm happy to make a motion on item 3.
Second.
Okay, we have a first and a second. Roll call.
We just need to state that the item is approved without opposition,
Okay, the items is approved without opposition.
since everybody's present.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to number 1, review the city revenue sources and options for revenue and enhancements for the general fund.
Thank you, good evening, and yes, as this committee is aware, this item is also on the council meeting for tonight. I think we might have a couple public comments for this item.
We have 2 public comments.
Okay, so we'll give a brief presentation, then it'll be up to the committee about the order of taking.
Okay, public comments first.
I'll give a presentation, then if you want to take the public comments.
Okay.
We can do that.
That's fine.
Sure. I'll skip the background here. Staff has brought back this discussion regarding local funding options based on direction that we received a couple weeks ago at Finance Committee. I think it was on June 22nd. And so we're circling back that a transaction and use tax, or similar to Measure I, the sales tax, would generate about $11 million a year. We have done some more work on the tax on parking occupancy. We believe that probably generate about $5 million a year. Real property transfer tax is 26 million. However, we'll just share that this number was derived based on the average number of parcels sold each year and the value of those parcels based on some analytical data. And this is based on what would be a 1.5% fee across the board to every property that's sold. And the reason why we did that is there was initially a proposed ballot measure in November from Howard Jarvis Tax Group that was going to propose a limit, and that was the upper limit. And so we wanted to see what could have been generated in Pasadena with that upper limit. And then business tax would be shifting our current tax to a gross receipts type tax, and then a parcel tax, which we've talked about. A parcel tax would be a special tax. And this is really what we believed would be the upper limit of amount funding, although we wouldn't propose that that's the parcel tax rate that we would push forward. And so I don't think we need to spend a lot of time on the transaction and use tax. That one's pretty straightforward. It's a sales tax. Sales tax is the one that could easily be used as a general tax or a special tax. Measure I is, of course, a general tax. It required 50% approval, but you could do either one. The parking occupancy tax would be a new taxing structure. There actually aren't a lot of cities that do this, but there are some. They often have large parking districts because of airports or other things. But most cities don't have a parking tax. Doesn't mean it's not right, it's just a reality of it. It's essentially a gross receipts tax on fees charged for parking. And then we did look at the idea of charging per parking space, or the idea of charging for parking spaces not being used. We didn't directly find any other agencies that were doing that kind of work. So that would certainly be a new area to explore, but we think that would take a significant amount of exploration. We did look at some other cities that have done that, and they have generated some opposition from special interest groups, mainly chambers or business districts and things like that are concerned about driving people out of their commercial areas. And then again, it could be a general tax, but most likely a special tax. We wanted to fund one of our priorities. The real property transfer tax is as I mentioned, our 26 million is based on 1.5% across the board. There's not a lot of cities that have a real property transfer tax. And most of the cities that do have a real property transfer tax are pre-Prop 13 cities. That's when they originated. Measure the mansion tax or the property tax in the city of LA. That's not a pre-Prop 13 tax. That's a newer tax measure. That one was put on the ballot from gathering signatures by voters. So while it is a special tax, it didn't require 2/3 approval, which also makes it unique because I believed it generated about 58% approval rate, which was key in its passing. That tax currently taxes all properties, but only over, I believe it's $5.4 million. So it doesn't tiered, right? But I believe it starts, the mansion part of the tax starts at, I believe, $5.4 million, and then there's a threshold above $10 million. But while it's called a mansion tax, it doesn't apply to any real property sold over that amount. So commercial, industrial, any type of property, it's not just on residential, which I know people have been confused about. And then, of course, for City of LA, it's a special tax. More and more cities that have passed changes since Prop 13, they have implemented them largely as special taxes as well to fund homelessness or other homelessness prevention or elimination and other special purpose taxes. And again, we've seen a fair amount of opposition when we looked at other cities. Realtors in the real estate industry has been largely concerned with transfer taxes, as their concern is that it would greatly harm the turnover of real estate and the ability to sell real estate. City of LA, there was a consideration to take it off or to put something on the ballot to revise it in November, but when the Howard Jarvis tax measure was removed from November, the City of LA chose not to put their revision on the ballot.
I don't think the Jarvis has been removed.
It has. So there will be Prop 40, I'm going to get it wrong, Prop 40 something, which is going to, it's going to require that any special tax require a 2/3 voter approval. So that's going to maintain the ballot, but the overall Howard Jarvis measure has been removed.
Okay, that clarification makes sense to what I've heard, yes.
Right, yeah, because they were originally going to eliminate future transfer taxes, and that went away. And then business license tax, again, generally a gross receipts tax. You could have single or tiered rates. You could carve out specific industries if you were trying to promote a certain industry in town and give them deferential. You could create caps. This is a tax that we certainly think that there's merit, but there's probably merit in 2 years or 4 years because we think that need to be a significant amount of outreach to the business community, working with the chamber and the business districts to make sure that we right-size this appropriately. And then a parcel tax. Again, you could have tax structures that vary. It could be per parcel. It could be per parcel size. It could be for developed size of square footage on the parcel. we would propose that if we move forward with this, that we focus on a tax that probably targets developed size of the property rather than parcel type or square footage. That generally gets spread a little better for some of the residential properties, especially some of our residential properties that are smaller in nature, like the 800 square foot residential properties and things like that. While it would be a new administration procedure, we could largely mimic how we handle the library parcel tax, and so we know how to do that, which is a good thing. And then parcel taxes are really only special taxes. There's not an avenue to do a general tax on a parcel tax. And so that really would be a special tax to carve out for a 2/3 voter approval. And then we've talked quite a bit about fire plan and the need to fund our 10-year fire plan, which is facilities, equipment, services, personnel, all of the above, year-round brush clearance. And then, of course, roadways, improving our roadways and traffic safety, and all the things around that, pedestrian bike safety. And then, not on these two slides, but we've seen significant amount of public comment over the weekend, and today certainly was around special tax to fund housing and homelessness services. The advocates for that largely focused in on the real property transfer tax as their preferred methodology. And many of them cite the city of LA, which again, I mentioned, that one was put on by voters, and so it didn't need 2/3, and it didn't get 2/3, which I think is important. However, historically, we've been pretty successful. The most recent parcel tax in Pasadena was PUSD's parcel tax, and that did get a little over 2/3, and I think at about 69% approval. So the highest revenue potential options are the transfer tax, the sales tax, and the parcel tax. And then the last comment about the real property transfer tax, as I mentioned earlier, is that most cities had this tax originated in pre-Prop 13. And that revenue, we say volatile, it probably wouldn't be volatile in terms of it's not going to go 0 and 10 million, but it definitely will fluctuate because it's based on turnover of property. And so there will be ups and downs in that revenue cycle. It's not a revenue cycle that necessarily remains flat or just grows over time. Although long-term it would probably grow because it's based on values of property turning over, and historically property values have always grown long-term. So from a staff perspective, if the council wanted to pursue a general tax, we'd probably propose doing a transaction and use or a sales tax, mainly because it's the most straightforward. It's generally what voters understand the most. And
hate the most.
And I respect that. It's regressive, and can definitely have an impact on our lower and middle income residents more than our upper income residents. And while we do get a fair amount of transient sales tax generation from outside people visiting Pasadena, we do know that our residents would bear a fair burden of that. But it's the most straightforward tax in terms of doing a general tax where you're seeking 50% approval. And then if the council wants to do a dedicated tax, we would propose a parcel tax because we think that that's the one that we can draft in the most appropriate way to fund the things that the council chooses to fund. And again, dedicated tax would require 2/3 voter approval. So tonight at this committee and then the council meeting, we'll be seeking direction on if any of these measures or ideas should move forward. We do have a county deadline of August 7th. And so we would need council to take formal action by approving the necessary resolutions before August 7th. So we would ask that the council put either the July 27th or the August 3rd meetings back on the calendar. From a staff perspective, we'd prefer August 3rd because that would give us more time to develop the resolutions and refine anything we need to. And that we'd also recommend that an ad hoc committee be formed of the council to assist staff in drafting ballot language and any of the other necessary documents that would have to come forward. So with that, we are available to answer questions, and I think you said we had a couple public comment.
Council, any questions? Excuse me.
In the case of a parcel tax, Matt, as you have described it, based on parcel size and not the typical way, I guess, we would go after a parcel tax. On average, what would a single-family residential household pay for, like, annually? Do you already had a slide on that, huh?
We had a backup slide
Oh,
just in case.
just in case. I was going to say, I missed that in the presentation. I don't know what I was doing.
And so this would be rate per square foot of developed property. So not of the land itself, but of developed property. So we ran a 15, 20, and 30 cent number.
Of developed property, that is, would a 10-story building pay the same as a 1-story building of the same footprint?
Square foot.
Of the total?
Yes, so the 10-story one would pay more.
Got it.
Yes. Yes, sorry, it's not lot coverage square footage, it's total.
You
built
said
square-
land and.
Yes,
so-
fair enough, yes. Total developed square footage, not, yes.
So this is
and-
annual
That's correct, annually.
for how many years?
It would ultimately be up to the council. Most of our tax measures in the past have been until repealed by voters, and so it'd be in perpetuity unless it was voted against. But if the council didn't want to do that, the council could set a timeline of 10, 15, 20 years if the council wanted to do something differently.
Library has a sunset, because we've done it
Yeah.
twice.
Correct, the library, I believe, has a 10-year sunset on it.
And if we did a 10-year sunset on it, would it, I guess the question would be, how much, this is the annual revenue, correct? Revenue estimated?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the annual revenue.
That's just for resident, oh, this is total annual.
Well, yeah, but that's a different rate per square footage, so if we, but yes.
But roughly $27 million, 28,
At 24 cents per square foot, yep.
at 20%. And I typically don't support taxes, just so that we are all on the same page. But I do think that we're in desperate need of upgrading our fire stations, as well as after what we saw with the fire, making sure that we are maintaining our coverage around the Arroyo. And then also for transportation-related issues, which is something I think that we all hear on the council about regularly, about neighborhood protections for drivers or just safety, driver safety. So I would be really interested in bringing this to the full city council. And I would vote in favor, and I'd motion to take this to the council to have a fuller discussion. The other tax, I think that is kind of low-hanging and should be on the ballot as well. And I don't want to, the ballot's crowded anyways, so we might as well put it on the ballot, which is the parking tax that was brought up earlier in your slide. So
Okay.
those two items, I think should come to the full city council, but maybe this whole entire presentation needs to come to us. So I'd be supportive of that.
Any other comments by the council? Do we have public comment?
I believe we have two public
Okay.
comments, but
Maybe we should go there first.
Oh, yeah, no, I just, some comments. I do think that we should bring this to the full council. I agree with that. And I certainly want to join in the comments related to the infrastructure for the fire department. We've heard some reports, or not heard, it's been reported to us that our stations, particularly 33s and 37, are in desperate need of a rebuild. Over the weekend, we just had two, I would say, serious earthquakes in the 4.3 range, and in and around the San Andreas Fault. And all it takes is one earthquake at a certain level, and we would lose 2 fire stations. And, you know, people live there. Our firefighters live there. You know, we need the infrastructure not just to be able to respond to an emergency such as an earthquake, but also, you know, I won't repeat what happened with the Eaton fire, but we certainly have to be prepared as much as we can. And so I'm prepared to make that a priority. And I think residents would want us to make that a priority in terms of where we put some of these dollars. And as if we ask them to support it. I think the full council will discuss this and give direction to the staff. I think it's a good idea to also bring together an ad hoc committee because the timeline is very quick. It's a quick turnaround, but I think if we double down on our efforts, we can work with the staff to make it happen.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm concerned about the tax on parking occupancy and the real property transfer tax. It's kind of a, you know, first of all, it needs a 2/3 vote, and then there's going to most likely be some opposition. So not absolutely, but possibly. So I question that. But we should just bring this to the full council to discuss it? All 5?
I think it's worth, well, it's an important determination, and, you know, I for one, would want the council, one, to be informed of the various options,
Okay.
And 2, to be unified in what we do.
Okay.
You know, we can't predetermine that, and I don't know where our colleagues are, but certainly providing them the same information that we have and allowing all of our colleagues to weigh in would be important, and hopefully we come out with a unified council that can go out to the community and say, this is the rationale, this is why we're asking, and this is what you're going to get from it. That would be the goal. One other question, Mr. Masuda, the convention center bonds, when are they, and city hall bonds, when are they defeased?
Yeah, we can look that up and we can have that for you by tonight's regular meeting. We can certainly have that data. I believe the convention center probably has another 12
12 years.
10, 12 years on it, I
I
think.
think they were both 30-year bonds. We refinanced the convention center. But I think we ought to look at existing bond revenues and check to see when they are defeased. Because, you know, what that may make, to Mr. Hampton's point, that may make it possible for us, for example, to ask residents to adopt a stopgap measure, allow us to rebuild fire stations, and then when the bonds for the convention center or other bonds are defeased, then we can look into that revenue. Specifically, I'm thinking about the TOT revenues that fund the convention center bonds and the T-bid revenues that will be at some point defeased. And so there may be an opportunity there to pivot and give the voters some relief or ask them to allow us to do other work that is desperately needed in our infrastructure.
Thank you. Councilmember Cole?
I'll save my comments on the substance until after we've heard from the public, but on a process, I think if we're going to set the council up for a coherent debate on an important topic, which can't be postponed, right? We can't say, oh, well, we made a little bit of progress and we'll come back in a couple weeks because we're right up at the deadline. It seems to me there are 3 questions, And we might think about recommending to the council, through you, Mr. Mayor, a way of working our way through it. And those three questions in my mind, and others may have different view, is should we put any taxes on the ballot? That's the first question. And there are arguments pro and con that. Then if we are going to consider putting a tax on the ballot, is it one, or would we be open to more than one? Because I think that's a consideration. Plus and minus, there are arguments on both sides. And then we would get into the third question, which is if we want to put a measure on the ballot, and if we're open to one or two of those, then what would those measure or measures be? I think if we mix all three of those in the discussion with 8 of us, one, will be here a long time, and 2, it'll be more difficult to come to a coherent decision. So that's my suggestion about how we might structure tonight's discussion after we've heard the staff presentation, is just start with the whole question of whether at this late hour we're willing to put anything on the ballot. I am open to that, but I think that's the threshold question.
Thank you. Public comment?
Mr. Christian Miller, you will have 2 minutes when you come up to the podium, and followed by Mr. Rafi Bichukian. Apologies if I didn't get your name.
No worries. Hi, good evening. Thank you for having me. My name is Christian Miller. I am the president of the Pasadena Fire Management Association. I'm also a resident. I live in Councilmember Cole's district. I wanted to come up and just address the parcel tax measure, both as a resident and as a member of the fire department. I first want to recognize the work the fire chief has done in finding a sustainable answer to what I worry about and in the fire service. What we're always trying to do is leave it better than we found it. And we don't currently have a solution for that. We've got 2 fire stations that need to be rebuilt. And we also have a standards of coverage that have identified that we actually need a 9th fire station. The chief and his staff have found a solution to this. And as much as I don't like paying taxes, I'm definitely willing to support this and be a person that will be paying that with my property taxes. So I just want to say that as a president of the PFMA, my board group fully supports this. And Rafi and I were planning to come up together, but we didn't know if that was allowed. We stand united in this as well. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Rafi?
All right, Rafi Bichukian, President for Pasadena Firefighters. I just want to stand here in front of you and let you know that we're in solidarity with Management Association as well. And we also fully support Chief's capital improvement plan. I'm happy to say it, he's the best fire chief I've seen in my career. He's definitely has good sight, vision for our future. And just like Christian was talking about, we're here to support it. And if we're feeling like it's a tight deadline, I'm telling you that my membership is here to engage the community and educate them on why this is important, why the need is there. Just want to be here to let you know that we're in full support of exploring that parcel tax and pushing it forward with your approval.
Thank you.
I would also like to mention that there were 33 letters of correspondence on this item. They were all shared with the committee. They were posted online and made public record for this item.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
So on the merits, I share the comments made by Mr. Hampton and Mr. Gordo. I am particularly concerned about doing this now. The 2 converging concerns are we've asked our voters for renewal of the library tax. We asked them for a $200 million library bond. The school district in recent years has asked for 2 rehabilitation bonds of very significant size, and so has the community college district. So we are going again to the well, and so my skepticism is the same as Mr. Hampton's. I think I'm very reluctant to move forward, and there's going to be $44 billion of bond measures on the ballot statewide, and we're just going to be carpet bombed with propaganda on both sides on the various billionaire taxes and anti-billionaire taxes and pro-billionaire measures to defeat billionaire taxes. And that's going to make it very difficult to cut through the noise, to get the attention of our voters. And we have not had a vigorous debate in our community about the needs or the way of dealing with them. That said, as much as I'm reluctant, we are where we are. And if we miss this opportunity, we have to wait 2 years to ask the voters again. So my mind is open, despite my deep, deep reluctance to open this Pandora's box at this late hour. My initial sense is that although affordable housing is very close to my heart, and I think we should take advantage of the opportunity to have more than 0.11% of property transfers in a city where people benefit from public services in the sales price of their residential and commercial property. I think to, again, at this late hour, to try to get a 2/3 vote on that is really difficult. It's close to my heart, but I think that we would have vehement opposition from the Board of Realtors, and we might not have a united council on that. On the fire measure, all of us are supportive of the chief's $200 million strategic plan. Not every element, is as important, but both of you have mentioned the importance of not having our fire stations collapse in an earthquake. That is something I worry about every night, because every night we could have an earthquake. And finally, if we're willing to put on more than one measure, and I'm not committed until we've heard our colleagues to even doing that, I do think the parking one is something of a no-brainer, notwithstanding Mr. Masuda's comments, which I respect. It's such a small amount, and it really would be borne primarily by people who work here as commuters and people who visit here as diners, shoppers, and tourists. So in the same spirit of a TOT, they use our roads. And that's where I would not do it as a special tax. I would do it as a general tax, but I would put all that money into road repair. We need money for road repair. I think we could make that case, and I think that's one place where we might be able to get majority support. They'd have to trust us that we wouldn't spend it on, increasing the city manager's salary or something like that. But I think that road repair is such an urgent priority. 17 million is what we should be spending every year, and we've been lucky to scrape together 11 million plus or minus over the last 3 years, and that was really scraping together this year, including a bunch of one-time money. So, and as we all know, it costs more the longer we wait. So those are the two that I personally, at this point, am most open to giving consideration to. And finally, I'm not enthusiastic about a sales tax because of all the arguments that have been made, and I won't repeat them.
No, thank you, Mr. Cole. I'm not against the parking tax. It's just that I would be concerned about, what it would take to pass it, the 2/3 as well. So, thank you.
Mr. Masuda, if I may.
Yes, Mayor?
On the parking tax, I think it is a no-brainer to look at. We have done a terrific job, I believe, in Pasadena over generations of building a place that's attractive to come to and visit. That's been a primary focus of the city for generations. And there's been a lot of investment on the part of the people of Pasadena to make that happen. And so I think asking visitors to, share in the cost of maintaining and continuing to evolve as a beautiful destination is the right thing to do. I would say the same thing related to the realtors and any opposition they may have to a parcel or any other tax. Realtors have benefited tremendously from increased property values over time. And, you know, I would hope that the realtors would recognize that, you know, there's a cost to maintaining that infrastructure. There's a cost to ensuring that we have a beautiful city that people want to live in. And so I, you know, am prepared, and I hope all of us will be prepared to approach the realtors and say, work with us, you know, work with us. Let's come up with something that makes sense, that meets the demands of people in Pasadena who are both living here but also transacting business here. And so I think it's important for the council to be unified in that message, should we head in that direction.
You're right, Mayor, and I want to thank the staff for bringing these opportunities to talk about, and so we can decide to move it forward to the residents to vote for. But it's just the opinions that we all have on these things, that what we think is, you know, what will pass, what will not pass. But, you know, we certainly want to see funds that go in to Pasadena so we can give the services and to the residents of our city. Thank you.
No, thank you, Mr. Masuda. The points Mr. Cole brings are very legitimate. You know, the election is around the corner, the deadline's around the corner, and so there's lots of work to be done between now and then should we proceed. And so we need to consider that timing. You know, I'm not suggesting that we do this, but just out of curiosity, a special election could be called as well. And I think that's something that we might want to consider as well.
What's the timing on that, Matt? A special election?
Although that could complicate things.
Yeah.
And it has a significant cost in and of itself.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, a special election complicates things in every way.
But I think you're right, Mayor. I think we should have at least information about what's the alternative that may focus our attention on the ballot measure that's right in front of us.
Exactly.
We can definitely bring that back. I'm aware of at least one city that did a special election just before the June election to put their own sales tax measure on the ballot to try to preempt Measure ER from the county. Ultimately, their city's sales tax measure passed and the county's measure passed, and so now their constituents will pay both.
There are some state requirements about when you can put tax measures on the ballot, but I don't.
Correct, and one of the caveats for doing the special election was that they had to declare a fiscal emergency. And so I don't know what else they had to do, but I know that was one of the components of.
If Mr. Jomsky knows any of that, that would be helpful to
Yeah.
know tonight too.
We'll definitely bring back as much research as possible. And I know Karen is getting the debt issuance, but I believe the debt issuances mature somewhere in the 12 to like 15-year time frame. So if we do want to consider a sunset on a parcel tax, a 15-year horizon might be one that ties well with the expiration or the maturity of some of the debt that we have existing.
No. I mean, there's no question we carry a lot of debt, and so let's look at existing debt, let's look at the timelines, and let's see if there's an opportunity to coordinate a new tax that would then be substituted in for existing debt as it matures and is defeased.
We have not talked about, but I think that it's worth at least an asterisk, Mr. City Manager. The fire chief's strategic plan includes augmenting staff as well as replacing 2 fire stations and adding a 9th. If we were to restrict our commitment of what we're asking from the voters to the capital side of that, we could do a bond issue. It would be much smaller than the library bond issue, something around the 100 million mark, I assume. But am I correct on that? Could we do a bond issue for rebuilding the fire stations and adding a new one?
General obligation bond could absolutely be done to fund any kind of capital infrastructure. So there could be one done specifically for
Yeah. that would-
fire infrastructure.
A parcel tax has the benefit of being able to be used for operating expenses, and so we could augment staff. The difficulty is parcel tax are kind of clunky. Property taxes really go to the value of the underlying property, although with Proposition 13, there's some distortions there. But at least, could you mention tonight the alternative of a bond issue for the capital side on fire?
Oh, tonight?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can mention that.
I think that's,
So
again,
is,
context.
is the mention in terms of we could do the idea of a smaller parcel tax to fund the operational components of the 10-year plan and then,
Well, I mean, look, what the average voter is going to say, because I'm already hearing from them, because I put out a message just this morning, and I'm already hearing from folks on both sides of various dimensions of this, is look first to your existing budget. You're spending 1.5 billion, and we'll spare everyone what the mayor always says, and he's 100% right, which is we can't use all that 1.5 billion for these various things. But that's what the average voter thinks, is you gotta find the money within your existing budget, because fire's really important, and there must be some things that are less important, and so you should reprioritize. That's the question that always gets raised. And so if we were reluctant to try to go for a parcel tax, and again, I'm not prejudging how we'll end up tonight, I think it is possible to just take on the capital side. Because that's, I don't see how we solve that other than with additional revenue. And again, right now, we all know that we're sitting on a volcano, or literally sitting on a fault.
Well, definitely, we're worried about, some major, something happening like an earthquake, so absolutely. So that's what's wonderful about our fire department. They're getting us prepared, and it's great, so thank you for that, Councilmember Cole. So, okay, so I guess we just need a motion to move this to the full council?
I think Mr. Hampton made that motion earlier. I'll second it.
Okay.
so I believe the council member Hampton's original motion was to push forward the two specifically, but we'll highlight those two, but talk about all of them as we
Yes.
bring it forward.
Okay, thank you, okay. If that's without opposition, we'll move that forward, thank you.
Yes, sir, that's correct, tonight.
Yeah, that's,
And then we do have several other items, but I realize that we're supposed to go to closed session now. So what we can do this evening is pull those items off consent if the finance committee wants to just allow them to move forward with discussion on the consent calendar.
I only have one question about item 5, and I could ask that question now, or I could ask it at council. It's on our agenda for this evening, correct? The grant?
That's correct.
And that's for an adjustment of the cost of our fuel cell buses.
Yeah, I have raised questions with the staff on item 5 as well, and I know that staff is anxious to move it forward. We are talking about the bus system tomorrow at MSC, so I would like to hold item 5, at least the part about spending money. I'm okay with taking the $2.4 million grant, and if we need to bifurcate those two, that's okay with me.
Hold on, so the grant is on the agenda for council tonight, though, right? That's what,
That's correct. The entire item is to accept the grant and then reappropriate funds reappropriate funds to fund other technology needs related to the buses and the transit system with those funds. I think Councilmember Cole is suggesting we bifurcate those two conversations. And we can certainly do that. Or Joaquin can comment. The other opportunity is to bifurcate that conversation, let MSC discuss what it wants later this week, and then bring it back next Monday for council approval, because we do have a meeting next Monday.
I like the grant piece of it, we should approve that. We should get that in. And then the conversation about how it's gonna be spent could come to MSC. Oh, that's fine. The only one, and I guess I could ask that question to MSC. I'll just wait for MSC to ask the question.
Yeah, I'm good with that. I think it's a good suggestion.
And at MSC, I just want to understand, I think it's about a $500,000 that we need to pay now. Like that, I guess, does that come from the general fund, or where's that money coming from? That's the only question I have is, where does the $500,000 come from?
For item 4 or item 5?
Item 5, sorry.
Item 5, the 2.4 million in Metro grants. There's no new monies being added. What we're doing is applying the grant funds to one project and reusing some of the other funds that were in that project to another contract. So there's no additional funds being
There's
added.
no difference?
No.
Okay, thank you. So there's no general fund dollars being spent on,
No, there's no general fund dollars, no new appropriations to that project from the general fund. We're just shifting money from one project to another.
okay, thank you.
So, we adjourn?
Before we adjourn, I just want to make sure we have a motion. Are we moving items 4, 5, and 6 to the city council tonight? And if we are, we need a motion for that.
With the understanding that we'll bifurcate item number 5, if staff is okay with that.
Yes.
Okay,
Second.
okay, sounds good. Okay, we'll move that to the full council. Thank you so much.
Okay.
We're adjourned.
All right.